Friend, welcome back to Fig and Farm at Home. Today is Tuesday, Quick Tip Tuesday. We're going to answer a listener's question in 10 minutes or less. Today, we're talking about how to bring California casual into your home. This one is a note taker because although we are talking about California casual, you can apply this same strategy to whatever design style you think you might have or that you might want inside your home. All right, grab that notepad, grab that pencil, and I'll meet you right back here in just a minute. It's Quick Tip Tuesday. You have questions, I have answers, and I am so glad to be answering them for you today. If you have a question that you want answered on the show, pop into my DMs on Instagram at Fig and Farm. Send me an email at figandfarmathome@gmail.com or join the Facebook group and ask there. bit.ly/design101 group. Let's hop to it. Let's answer your question. And if you find value in this, I'm sure someone else will too. So make sure you share with a friend. All right, friend, before we dive into today's question from Sophia, I want to give you some good news and some bad news. Which do you want first? That's always the question I ask my boys. What do you want first? Good news or bad news? I'm going to start with the bad news. The bad news is you missed it. Last week, I hosted a live, free 2-day workshop called Back to Basics Bootcamp. Inside of the workshop, I taught about what the number one thing you should focus your attention on if you are wanting to learn how to create a cozy, cohesive-looking home. Because so often we get stuck in this idea of, I need to buy the furniture, I need to pick the paint, I need to check my bank account. I can't do it because of X, Y, Z. And there are reasons for both of them. What you think you might want to start with and the things that might keep you back. Inside of Back to Basics Bootcamp, we talked about the number one thing that is the place to start. The place. And I'm not talking about shopping or going to a certain store or buying a certain piece of furniture, picking a certain color of paint. I'm not talking about any of those things, but it is foundational for learning how to create a cohesive home. It's like a building block. And what I taught in last week's Back to Basics Bootcamp is the first step. And after you understand the concept, you are equipped to create a cohesive looking home. And a cohesive looking home is really the foundational tool to having a cozy home. So these three things go hand in hand, but it all starts at the very beginning, in the basics. So I want to invite you this week to send me an email at hello@figandfarmathome.com if you are wanting to watch the replays. The replays are going into the archives on Friday, April 5th, so you'll want to watch those now before they disappear. All right, send me an email at hello@figandfarmathome.com so you can get those replays sent to you. All right, let's get to Sophia's question. She says, do you have any tips for making my home look California casual? Yes, Sophia, I do. I do have some tips, and here's what I want you to think about. Now, for any of you listening, you can apply these same tips to the question you have, the style that you might be drawn to. The same applies here, or you're just inserting whatever design style you are gravitating to. But let's talk just for a minute about this whole idea of a style. A style like this has a nice, neat little label, and it fits into a nice, neat little box. But that box varies depending on who is looking inside of it, which you'll hear in just a second. So I want you to be mindful of labeling your style just in general. Be mindful of that because your interpretation is going to be different than the interpretation of someone else beside you. Labels are a really nice way for designers or manufacturers to make it easier for you to understand and process the overall aesthetic that is sitting behind it. But just keep in mind that they are labels, and that's it. There's a lot of work that goes into understanding a design style and understanding what your interpretation of it is. So that is what I'm going to walk Sophia through here. So the first thing I want you to think about is, how do you interpret California casual? Because Sophia, I could be standing right next to you with our 8 best friends. And if I asked each of us to tell me, what do you interpret or what do you think of when you think of California casual, we might have 10 different answers. We might. So I want you to do a little bit of journaling here. And this is the first step, is to really be mindful of what it is you interpret California casual is and write it down. For me, I'm just going off the cuff here. When I think of California casual, I think of light. I think of light, not necessarily just in color, though I do think it has a very subtle color palette, but I also think in terms of weight. And you've heard me say that there are different weights that furniture have. They can present themselves heavy or light, depending on color or bulk. The same is here. And so I'm thinking of lightweight furniture. I'm thinking of things that have a little bit more slender arms, slender structure. I'm thinking of wooden accents, and white oak immediately comes to mind here, or something that might mimic white oak, something like a whitewashed wood. I am not picturing orange wood tones, deep brown wood tones. I'm not picturing any of that because they're too heavy, but I am picturing very light. I'm picturing black as an accent, but not heavy black. So no black furniture, maybe a black side table because it's minimal, but I'm picturing more like a black metal or like iron bookcase with open glass. The glass keeps it airy, the black grounds it. I'm picturing natural materials, big plants, not necessarily little plants here and there, and definitely not boho, like plants clustered. No macrame here. I'm picturing plants in earthen pots. So, if you immediately picture like Pottery Barn or Crate and Barrel and those vases that have kind of that earthen look to it, I'm picturing those. I'm picturing not a whole variation of color. It's a very, very neutral palette. And the palette does have a little bit of color, but it's more like sand tones or oatmeals. That's what I'm picturing. I'm picturing wispy plants, big plants, plants in corners, big open airy windows. Okay, that's what I'm picturing, Sophia. What are you picturing when you think about California casual? Now that you have that list written, I want you to take inventory. This is step 2. Take inventory. What do you have within your own home that is those things? I would be referencing my list, that list I gave you, but you would be referencing yours. What things do you have, and do any of them immediately negate the look that you're going for, your interpretation of California casual? If they do, those could be candidates for replacement, for remediation. Remediation doesn't always mean taking it to Goodwill. Remediation could mean painting it. It could mean restaining it. It could mean taking it and putting it in a different place in your home. So you have a couple options. It doesn't just mean start from scratch, though. If you are wanting that look and that aesthetic within your home, there are likely going to be things that are going to fight against that. And then just take stock, take inventory. How many things do you need to replace? Is this doable? Is this feasible? Can you make anything that you have work so that you can have that look and that feel? And then you want to bring them in. That's step 3. Bring them in when you can, where you can. Now, inside of Home Design 101, Sophia, I talk a lot about what the biggest impact piece is, the biggest change you could make, what that is, because a lot of times we think that it is in tune, in line, in alignment with a high price tag, and it often isn't. It can be. It absolutely can be. Like if you need a new couch, that is directly aligned to a high price tag. But sometimes the biggest impact change isn't that. So if you're trying to achieve a California casual look, the change that we might make first, the change that could be recommended that would make a dramatic impact change, could be something different entirely. It all depends on where you start. And that starting place is dependent on the inventory you just took and the goal that you're going to be working towards. And then step 4 is to repeat. Repetition, write this down. This is for everyone. Repetition is the key to great design. Repetition. Now, repetition does not mean everything is matchy-matchy. Everything comes in a set. Repetition does not mean that you are buying 4 of the exact same pillows. You can have repetition within the design elements within your space. Knowing what those design elements are happened, Sophia, when you took inventory when you took stock of your perception of that style. Sophia, if you are wanting more, if you are wanting to really dive a little bit deeper, make sure that you bring in intentional choices, learn how to make confident decisions, get out of overwhelm, and have access to that map that tells you which change to make first, because it should be the most dramatic impact change, the biggest impact change, and it might not cost a lot. If you want access to that, that is inside of Home Design 101. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. All right, friend, if you have a question just like Sophia, you can email me at hello@figandfarmathome.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until then, I'll see you soon. Hey, real quick before you go, if you learned something new or found value in today's podcast, would you head over to iTunes to Fig and Farm at Home and leave a review and subscribe to the show? That would be awesome. And if you'd like to connect with my community of mamas who are learning to be intentional storytellers within their own homes, join us at bit.ly/design101 group. There's always more room at the table. See you soon.